Well, hey, howdy, hi, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by to join me today. I really do appreciate it. My name is Ellie, and I'm a witch, and this over here is my teaching assistant, Andy, and today is Sunday, and on my channel that means it is Legends and Lore. Today's Legends and Lore episode is going to be about doppelgangers. This is going to be the second video that I have put out that is going to be mainly stories about the different creatures. Last time I did skinwalkers and wendigo, and then of course today I'll be doing doppelgangers, but it's very other people's stories heavy. But let's go ahead and jump into the video. So like I said, last time I did multiple creatures, but this time it is going to focus specifically on doppelgangers. I'll first tell you a little bit about them so we know what we're talking about, and then we'll get into some stories. So doppelgangers are ghostly doubles of living people, and oftentimes they haunt their living counterparts. We see stories of doppelgangers dating back to ancient mythologies. From Germany, they use the word doppelganger with a capital D, though this originally had a different meaning to the ghostly apparition. English speakers, we do not have the same history with the word, and it is a rather new word derived from the German word. In ancient Egypt, they called the phenomenon Ka, and a Ka was a physical spirit double that had the same memories and feelings as the human they resemble. Norse mythology calls them Vardögr, which was a ghostly double that would perform someone's actions in advance. This same pattern was seen in Finnish mythology, but it was called an Itenen, or a first comer. In many of the majority Muslim countries, they have a Karin, which could be benevolent or harmful spirit doubles. These beings can have children, which are then spirit doubles of that person's children. When talking about encounters nowadays, there is a wide variety of encounters. Mainly, though, it seems that people don't encounter their own doppelgangers, but rather that of loved ones or friends. One thing that is consistent in a lot of stories is that the doppelgangers don't interact with someone that the real version would know, not responding to their names being called, for example. It is debated if this is more paranormal or if this is a type of creature similar maybe to a mimic and what seeing one means. They do not seem to be evil, but some people consider them to be omens or bad luck. Majority of the time, the doppelgangers are of people who are still alive, but there are times that they have been of people who have passed away, and that can either be incredibly creepy and terrifying, or it can bring peace to some. Now that we all know what they are, let's get into some real-life stories. So, my story wouldn't actually come full circle for many years. When I was a teen, I grew up in the Heights of Houston, and I would walk to school every day in the 90s. I only skipped school twice, and both times I was caught. Back then, there was an alert system that called to notify whatever parental contact number was listed if a child didn't show up for school. So both times, I made sure to attend first and second period, so I didn't set off the alert system. This was the way. It was a huge school, and nobody had time to call personally if a student wasn't in class for roll call after second period. Anyway, I was caught because on both occasions people who knew me saw me in places I shouldn't have been, including my father. My father said that he had saw me walking in the opposite direction of the school the first morning. He would go out for coffee and a paper and would return home before leaving for work. He followed me and then I disappeared. He called the school, they said I was there, but it bothered him so much that he called again later in the day and learned I wasn't in class that afternoon. So when I got home, grounded. The second time, I was seen by staff members at a cafe that a friend of his owned. We frequented it on the weekends, and the staff and the owner said I sat at the end of the bar but wouldn't order anything, though I interacted superficially. Knowing I should be in school, the owner called my father. I got home that afternoon, grounded. Only 2 times I skipped, both times caught. Fast forward many years. Turns out there was a serial killer that was living in our neighborhood who targeted teen girls and was eventually apprehended in 2000. I walked all over that neighborhood at various points, even lived a couple blocks away from his last residence at one time. I don't necessarily think I would have been a victim of this person, but I can't help but think my doppelganger was keeping me out of some sort of trouble now that I fully understand the dangers lurking in plain sight. Around 15 years ago, when both of my kids were toddlers, I was putting them to bed one night, and my son was adamant that he wear his favorite red race car pajamas. I happily obliged, helped him change into them, and tucked him into bed. Then I sat down at my kitchen table with a friend who had come over to chat and catch up. The way that my apartment was set up, you could see my kid's bedroom from the kitchen table. My friend and I were talking for a while before we were suddenly interrupted by the sound of my son screaming. We both turned and looked at the bedroom doorway and saw my son standing there loudly crying, shrieking, and wearing his green pajamas with airplanes on them. Everything inside of me was screaming that this was wrong. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and a cold shiver shot down my spine. My friend and I wordlessly stared at each other for a second. We both knew that my son couldn't change his pajamas by himself yet. We looked back at the doorway, and my son was gone. We ran to the bedroom and found him tucked into bed, still sleeping peacefully in his red race car pajamas. My friend asked me if I saw him standing there in his green airplane pajamas, and I confirmed that I had. My friend freaked out and left. I slept on my kid's bedroom floor that night to make sure nothing happened to them. My friend and I still talk about it to this day. It's one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. My son, of course, doesn't remember any of it, but he loves hearing the story of how his doppelganger scared the crap out of us. I, 24 female, have had paranormal experiences my whole life. It died down the older I got, but never really went away. It's been a few years since I've experienced anything, but today I had a weird experience that was very new and different. I'm not even sure if it's paranormal or not, but it was very odd and gave me a weird feeling. I'm currently at my desk, which is in the living room, strange, I know, and my husband came home from a walk and we were having a conversation, and then when the conversation ended, he said, "I'm gonna go shower now," and I said, "Okay," and he walked towards the room. About 30 minutes passed, and I asked where he was. I wanted to know if he was still in the bedroom, or if he was out here so we could hang out while I work, and if he was okay. He messaged me and said, "We're at the pool." Instantly, I'm confused because what does he mean he's at the pool? He just took a shower, so I messaged him back and said, Weren't you just in the shower?" And he said, "No, I'm at the pool with our roommate's name. What's going on?" I asked if he was messing with me, and he swore he had no idea what I was talking about. He claims he never said he was going to take a shower. My husband likes to mess around with me, but he doesn't play it out for longer than maybe 2 seconds. I told him I watched him walk towards our room, which also so happens to be the way to get to our garage, and he said he left out the garage door, but I never heard our security system saying that a door had been opened, and trust me, that thing does not miss a beat. He made a joke about me blipping into a different dimension, and I joked back that I got stuck halfway through. I'm really confused and wondering if anyone else has had experience like this before. If it helps, I've been seeing moths everywhere lately, but that seems to be normal, even if it's not normal for me personally. Also, I'm sure most of you are just gonna be like, "You just forgot," or "You misheard." But believe me, I'm not the kind of person to jump into paranormal for everything. But I've always been smart to trust my feelings, and that entire incident made me feel very strange in the pit of my stomach. Edit to add, it might also help to mention that for the last week or so, I felt really off in my room. I've never experienced anything here. My best friend is sensitive, and she has, but I don't think it's the house because it's never made me feel anyway until recently. Along with the moths randomly appearing and now this, it's just strange. This happened to me about 2 years ago, around late December of 2020. I was 19 around the time. Me and my girlfriend were at my grandparents' place having a couple of drinks out in the garage until it got too cold to stay out there. It was one of the coldest nights of the year, and there was a bad blizzard that night. We live in Canada, by the way. We both went back to the house around 2 a.m. She went into my room, and I went out in the kitchen to cook something for us in the oven. I was on my phone standing alone out in the kitchen when my grandma and my girlfriend both walked out into the kitchen together. It was a bit strange because my grandma is never up that late, and it was even stranger that my girlfriend came out at the same time. The first thing my grandma said to me is, "Don't go back out there tonight. On a night like this, people lose their lives." I was a little bit freaked out because I was just about to head back out to the garage to grab something. I never told anyone I was going back out, though. My girlfriend and my grandma just stood there staring at me with the weirdest expressions I had ever seen, with very unnatural smiles that didn't seem right. My girlfriend then walked over and gave me a hug. When I grabbed her, she was ice cold. I commented about this, and when I mentioned how cold she was, her expression changed. Her smile faded, and she looked up at me with really serious, sad eyes and didn't say anything. There was something else I noticed too. She smelled like a campfire, an earthy, smoky smell. There wasn't an explanation for this, and she didn't smell like that earlier. I swear, at that moment, I got chills all over. There was something so off about it, but I couldn't put my finger on it. My girlfriend whispered in my ear, "Don't go outside tonight." She walked back over to my grandma. She stood there beside her with her head down and a serious expression, while my grandma was still staring at me with that weird fake smile. It was so bizarre, I just stood there speechless. The wind began to literally fucking howl outside. My grandma turned and looked at my girlfriend. "Don't mess with black magic," she said. "Nothing good is gonna come from it." My girlfriend didn't say anything. She continued looking down. I stood there confused. My girlfriend looked up at me. "We have to go now," she said. They both started walking away. My grandma looked back at me for a second. "See you on the flip side," she said with that weird smile. I got another chill through my whole body when she said that. They turned the corner and left the kitchen. I stood there for a while. I didn't know what to make of it all. I decided not to go out in the garage, I'd go out and get my stuff the next morning. I stayed out in the kitchen for another 10 minutes until the food was done. I went back into my room with it. My girlfriend was in bed, laying down. She got up and we put on a movie. I guess I was quiet because she asked me what's wrong. I told her everything was okay. It took me 10 minutes to say something about it because, to be honest, I was still frightened by it. I turned to her and asked why her and my grandma came into the kitchen. The second I said that, my nose started bleeding. I ran to the bathroom to get something to stop the bleeding. When I went back into the room, I told my girlfriend everything. As you can guess, she said she never went out in the kitchen, and she swore on someone's life she was in the room the whole time. She also didn't smell like smoke anymore. We went and woke up my grandma right after, and my grandma said the same thing. She actually thought we were trying to mess with her, and she didn't believe me. We were so freaked out after this, we had trouble sleeping for the rest of the night. The part that really messed my girlfriend up was when I told her how cold she felt and how she smelled like smoke. The only explanation we could come up with was that maybe if I went outside that night, something bad would have happened to me. Maybe the spirits of dead relatives watching over me came in that form so I wouldn't be scared and so that they could get the message through. The last part of it that made sense was that about black magic. My girlfriend just got a book about witchcraft from her friend the week prior. My girlfriend never opened the book again after this. She took what was said as a warning. I've been thinking about writing this story down for the past 2 years, and my girlfriend encouraged me to finally do it because maybe someone else out there had an experience like this. To this day, I still get chills thinking about it, especially the last thing she said. See you on the flip side. And that is all that I have for you today. That is some spooky stuff. Personally, I think I lean more towards that's something kind of paranormal because of stories like that last one where it definitely could have been relatives who knew something in the past and just kind of came back in a form to make sure that he didn't go outside. So just personally, I tend to lean more towards paranormal, but people who think that they're more demonic entities or bad luck, I could definitely understand how they might be cryptids, or not cryptids, creatures. Maybe something more like a mimic in those cases instead of like actually a doppelganger. I do think at some point I should do one specifically about ghosts and tell other people's stories as well as my own, which is a really spooky thing to say, but I think that that would be really interesting because I feel like there's just so many ghost stories and I can make hours and hours long videos about everybody's ghost stories, but I think they're really interesting and there's just such a wide variety of creature stories like across the board that it's fun and it's different and sometimes really spooky to learn about. But yeah, let me know if any of you have ever experienced a doppelganger, whether that be of yourself or somebody told you about it, or you've seen a doppelganger of somebody you know. So I've been very bad about telling you guys what the upcoming videos are, mainly because I've been procrastinating on figuring out what the videos are and researching them, but tomorrow's video is going to be about Doveland, Wisconsin, the town that never existed. And then on Tuesday, I'll be talking about The Watcher. And for that, it's obviously like an actual case. So I will tell you guys about the whole actual case. But Netflix created a Watchers limited series. And I watched it when it first came out and I rewatched it again, which is kind of what made me want to do the video. But I'll also tell you about that and because they went very different direction with it. Because it wasn't like only the case. The case was changed and they added another case in there, so I will tell you about that too. Also, I will be streaming on Thursday the 6th and then on Saturday the 8th. On Thursday, I don't know when I'm going to be streaming. I will let you guys know on Instagram. A game is coming out, Do No Harm, and so I will be playing that on release day. And then on Saturday, I'll start streaming at 2 p.m. No idea what I'm playing. I might just play some new demos that I got though and just do a demo only stream. So yeah, I don't want to take up any more of you guys' time. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!